Hey, everybody. It's episode 2 of the You Matter series for UIO, the podcast for teen girls. Hugs to everyone, and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teen girls. It is for you and about you, inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today, we're talking about a topic that follows you from school to wherever you go: education. And whether we like it or not, education matters. And this episode will ensure that you get the most out of your schooling experience, whatever your future plans may be. We'll look at how to manage expectations from parents and guardians to how to apply yourself without burning out. It's all about finding a balance and understanding how your current education influences your future choices. Our guest today is Donna Morgan, a counselor who specializes in helping adolescents who are struggling with exam stress. With over 20 years of experience as a counselor in Guilford, Surrey, Donna has trained with Paul McKenna, Richard Bandler, and Roger Callahan. We are so fortunate to have her with us today. Donna, let's kick off looking at why education matters so much. We often hear about how important it is to prepare for the future. But I want you to talk to us a little bit about why it matters so much now. Why should our girls apply themselves now?
Because they've got so much more opportunity now. I mean, that corny phrase of the world is your oyster, it literally is. We are raising, young girls to be women that can do pretty much any job they want to now, from head up the FBI, the police force, the monarchy, the fire brigade, you name it, they can get a job doing it now, which is completely different to like my mother's generation, where she was told she could be a secretary and she was a secretary, but that was kind of like the highest that you could aim for. And then when I was at school, it was you did home economics, you weren't allowed to do woodwork, and you were probably going to have to do secretarial skills still. But now women are becoming leading people in medicine and education. And so therefore, they have these wonderful opportunities. They need to study.
Are there any tips or any advice that you can give our listeners for how do you stay in the moment? Because it is exciting, as you said, seizing the moment, but just knowing that this is what you're doing, you're preparing for the future. How do you stay motivated knowing that this is coming?
So can I take you back to the beginning of how I would pitch it to, like, how I see it, that the young people are struggling, and how I pitch it to parents if they come to me and say, my daughter's all over the place, they don't know what they're doing. So I would say, first of all, things are very different to how they were when you and I grew up. The education system is different. It's a bit broken. It measures everyone the same, and we're not all the same. You've got visual learners who need to see pictures and graphs to visualize, to learn something that way. You've got auditory learners who need to hear the information. You've got kinesthetic learners who need to engage in the activity to grasp the concept of it. Then you've got all the learning difficulties on top, and there's at least 1.5 million people with learning difficulties. I'm as dyslexic as they come. So you throw all that into a melting pot, and then you say, we're going to judge you all the same. And then they say, right, now you've got to study for your exams. So the way I describe it to parents is, and this is my kind of quirky thing that I've developed over probably the last 20 years. I say, so imagine for the next year, you're going to go to work every day. You're going to come home every day, and you're going to write about your day for at least an hour and a half. That's going to be graded. You've got to hand that in, and your boss is going to grade it. So between going to work and doing your stuff, your homework, that's about a 70-hour week. Then at the end of the year, we're going to test you. So you're also going to have to revise. You're going to have to answer questions about how much revenue you raised for the company, your customer service. You're going to have to remember the dates and the names and the meetings of all the people you saw, the impact that had on the company, how many days you had off sick, all that, while spending a couple of hours a day on TikTok, learning how to do new makeup, what fashion is out there, watching Love Island, going out, not going out, being popular, not being popular, seeing your friends post how much they're revising, but is that true, or is that a fib? Social media can be great for getting new techniques, but it can also make you feel quite alone and isolated. At the same time, you are taking exams when you're hitting the giddy heights of puberty. You're trying to find your place in the world. people to belong to, your girl friendships. They're notoriously tricky at that kind of age. Then there's boys entering the scene, there's spots, there's acne, there's body image, there's periods, there's a perfect storm, and then there's hay fever around about the time you're taking an exam. So off you go. I want you to really knuckle down, study really hard for the next year, and then do your revision. And then you can set these exams that are going to determine whether you get a raise at the end or whether you have to stay in the same job forever and ever. That's kind of how I pitch it to parents and say, now, how stressful does that sound?
I think it's great motivation though, because think about it from that perspective. That's really good. So I think it's a great pitch. Let's talk about the future a little bit. I spent some time at a teen conference a few years ago where the panelists talked about if they had known at 14, 15, 16 what they knew at 24, 25 onwards, they might have made some different choices. And I think you were just talking about some of those things. Yeah, so they might have spent less time obsessing over certain things and more time applying themselves, in other areas. Again, it sort of goes back to a similar questions, but what can our girls do right now to ensure that they have less regrets in the future? Obviously, studying is one of them. Is there anything else that they can do where they're not sitting on a panel later saying, I could have done more at this or that?
I think that many things come into that picture. I think we live in a society at the moment where parents are very focused on the grades and the outcome because they want their daughters to go to university. They want them to get the good job. But in amongst that, we have to remember that 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, 17, 18-year-old girls are still girls. They're kind of looking like women, but they are still girls. They still get outside. They need to ride their bike. They need to do sport. They need to go swimming with their friends and go to the pictures and stuff. So they need to strike this balance of self-confidence, still doing sports, still seeing their friends, having time to study, being efficient in their study, because so many procrastinate and actually spend only a really short amount of time studying. They spend more time worrying about the studying, more time worrying about the exam. And I think if you also take the future 24-year-olds, as you were saying, the habits that you learn when you're revising for your GCSEs, which are the most stressful time of your life, in that you're learning the most diverse amount of stuff that you have to remember in detail, which is why I was sort of counting out that list, because it's so many different things. When you do A-levels, you've just got your 3 or 4 chosen subjects, which is a breeze. They're your favorite subjects as well to start with, so you're more engaged, you're more active with them. But going back to the end sort of goal, the habits that you pick up while you're studying now are the habits that you'll have when you're a 24-year-old. So if you are a procrastinator and you put it off, you're going to do that at work. If you're the person who works goes to school all day, comes home and studies till 10, 11 o'clock at night, you're going to be that person that does that at work also. That's not going to be a healthy long-term thing to sustain. So the habits that you form as a teenager now need to be good, healthy. That's like waving a magic wand, but they need to be good and healthy, and they need to be working for you, because what you learn now, you will carry on doing as you get older. So learning the importance of the balance, basically, like study, but have fun. A lot of parents will go, right, you're grounded for the next 2 months. You think, no, don't ground them. They need to see their friends. They need to go out and laugh. They need to go and do something silly and just laugh till their belly aches, because their brain needs time off. It's all like focus, pressure. And the end goal is so far away that they need these little rewards in between where they get that little sort of dopamine hit of having fun and having a laugh and feeling rewarded.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's excellent advice, because it's all about what you've really pointed out is you've got to strike that balance, and you want happy, healthy teenagers to become happy, healthy adults.
Yeah.
It's so important. So I think that is absolutely amazing advice. Thank you so much for that. There will be the odd girl, or maybe more than the odd girl, because I think a lot of what the 24 and 25-year-olds were talking about too is that they didn't strike the balance. They did push themselves so very hard. So what are some of the signs that maybe for a parent or a guardian or something that our teen girls are pushing themselves too far, or maybe even the signs for our girls? Are there things that they can just sort of know, okay, I've really gone too far. I'm really not getting that happy, healthy balance?
I think we need to take a step back, Sonja, before that, because I think the key thing is that the communication between the parents and the child is the most important thing. And you're in an age where they're starting to withdraw, they're starting to talk to their parents less because their parents aren't cool, their parents don't understand their world that they live in. So you get this sort of this break where you're not really truly getting what's going on at home necessarily. And they're in their room. Are they studying? Are they not studying? It's about the communication. You know, you need to be talking to them. They don't want to talk to you that much. You know, when kids are little, you get so much out of them when they're in the bath. They will chat with you. That, you know, their inhibitions are down. They're having a good time. They're just chatting. I think as kids get older, it's a good way to pull them down for dinner time and say, right, can you just chop some vegetables for me? And while you're chopping the vegetables, say, how's the revision going? How's the studying going? How's the workload? Are you feeling it? And then relate it back to, yeah, I hate it when I've got a really big project on at work and I've got lots of stuff to write up. It can feel overwhelming. How are you feeling? So it's things like, are they sleeping okay? Are they seeing their friends still? Are they engaging with other people? Because the pandemic's had a bit of a lasting effect. It's sort of bubbling up now in that youngsters are finding it quite hard to socialize. So they're spending more time in their bedroom. They're not necessarily revising, or they are revising. They're revising too hard. So they are pushing themselves in so many different ways. Like, I've got to go out, I've got to stay in. There's just so much more going on. So I think you've got to interact with them. You've got to talk to them, go on a dog walk. If you don't have a dog, go on a walk, you know, get them out the house, make sure that they are interacting with the family, have dinner times, or if you can't do dinner times, have breakfast. Make sure that you're still connecting with them like you used to when they were little and they came home from school and you went, how was your day? And you gave them a drink and a biscuit. It's kind of that same thing. And when they're studying, take them up a little picnic of grapes and oranges and apples all cut up and just say, do you fancy a drink? What, you know, do you need 5 minutes off? How are you doing? And just get great. That contact, get that interaction with them, whether they want it or not. Just keep showing up, knocking on the door and saying, I bought you a snack. Do you want to go for a walk? Just simple pleasures in life that are grounding.
Yeah, those are really key points, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and I think you just covered it very beautifully, is that mental and emotional well-being. It's so key, you know, making sure they're getting enough sleep, making sure that you're interacting as a family and that you keep the communications open and effective, and all those things are so key. And so that's fantastic, you know, really fantastic advice for our girls and their guardians as well.
It's simple things. Like I was talking to a parent yesterday, actually, and she said, oh, Donna, I did a terrible thing last night. And I said, what did you do? She said, I watched Love Island. Welcome to parenthood. She's like, oh, I know. I sat through it with my daughter because all her friends are watching it and I didn't want her watching it on her own. She said, and in the end, I gave this running commentary. I turned into a comedian. And I said, I think that's excellent, because not only are you encouraging them out of their bedroom at a time where they're doing exams and it's all quite stressful, you're providing a bit of humor, but you're also sort of breaking it down and going, that's not real life. That's not really what I want to attribute to you. So it's like a win-win on many kind of, you know, you're ticking lots of boxes on that respect. You're getting family time, you're having a bit of a giggle. It's kind of staying educated as to what's going on in your kid's life. And that's not always easy.
Yes, you really have to. And on that note, let's talk about some of our friends and people who we hang out with, you know, when we're teenage girls and everything, and how they might influence our study habits. For example, we might find ourselves with a workaholic friend who doesn't want to have any fun, who doesn't really understand that balance, or a friend that doesn't want to work at all. And so if you're in a situation as a teenage girl like that, how would you suggest that they deal with that?
So going back to the 24-year-old you, if you could be 24, you would say, do your own thing, girl. Figure out what you want to do.
Yes.
And that's the key point, that 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls, they want to fit with we all want to be part of a group. We want to fit in.
Yes.
And if our friend is being really cool, like, oh no, I didn't revise for that test and I got like 98%. I mean,
yeah,
I had a friend like that. It was just like, yeah.
Like it doesn't work for me.
No, me neither. I was beavering away every night, like till the wee hours. And then again, like the parents can be key in this. The thing with study, so I've got a really good tip with study, actually. Organization is the key bit. And teenagers are historically not very good at organizing themselves. So I found a really good way to work out revision is to say you're doing geography, Sonja. I would say make a list, right? You've got your topics for revision within geography you've got global warming, climate change, rivers, and weather patterns and volcanoes.
Mm-hmm.
So every time, so you can draw it out however you want. You can draw it out on a spreadsheet, you can draw it out with felt tip pen, but every time you revise on climate change, you write down, I did 20 minutes on climate change, I did 10 minutes on volcanoes, I did 30 minutes on weather patterns. And then at the end of the week, you add it up. At the end of the next week, you add it up. So what that will do is that will show you how much study you're actually doing. So it's quite shocking for some because they're like, I've done loads. And you go, how are the numbers tallying? Oh, I've done like 40 hours on geography. And you're like, that's quite a lot, in the last week or two.
Yes.
And you've gone to school. Do you think you're doing a little bit too much? Because you're doing all these different things, it starts to slip. And students, are really good at going, oh, I've done loads of revision, but they've completely forgotten to revise the climate change that was on the list.
Yes.
They've revised the volcanoes because everyone loves a volcano.
Yes.
The climate change, I know about climate change, I've done that. But actually, they've not revised the whole kind of thing. To go back to the question, work out what works for you learning, whether you study well for 40 minutes, whether you study well for an hour, whether you're better doing 20 minutes on climate change, 20 minutes on rivers, 20 minutes on weather patterns, and then taking a break and then going back to it, but having the confidence to be the learner that you want to be. Don't be influenced by your best mate who's going out every night partying and not studying, or your mate that stays up till 2 o'clock in the morning and looks like The Walking Dead because she's not getting enough sleep and she's not getting enough daylight. You've got to get that balance, and it's throwing silly things in. Like for really stressed out students, I like to say, okay, right, it's raining outside, take your shoes and socks off, go walk around the garden. And they're like, Donna, it's raining. I'm like, go walk around the garden and come back and then tell me how you feel. Because you're very in your head, you're disconnected from your body, you're probably hyperventilating quite a lot because you're like, oh, I haven't done that, oh, I haven't done that either, oh my God. So the tension's building and the tension's building. Then you can't concentrate. When you take your shoes and socks off and you walk around a muddy garden in the rain, okay, I'm not too popular at that point. But
no.
When they come back in,
you wouldn't be with me either, Cheryl.
But when they come back in, they're very much back in their body. They've been grounded, and they're like, you can see the wood for the trees. You can see the clarity. You can go like, I've taken a breath of fresh air. I need to just sit down now, have a drink and go back to it. It's like pressing the reset button, really.
I think that's amazing. I think that's great. And just what you said, I love what you said about having the confidence to be in your space, to know what's right for you. And that's a bit of overcoming the peer pressure, isn't it? Just having the confidence to say, this doesn't work for me. Because if you fast forward to the 24, 25-year-old, we're very good at that age at saying, this doesn't work for me. And so that's absolutely magic. Let's talk a little bit about going back to the parents. Most parents are absolutely well-meaning, and I'm sure, but we've all heard and we've seen the stereotypes on television, the tiger mom or the really pushy parents that really push. And when you encounter a situation like that, what sort of advice do you give your students who you're dealing with, and how do you work with parents as well?
So I work with the parents as well if they want to. If they don't want to and they just think that their child has the issue or the problem, I work with the student and I encourage them to speak their truth. I mean, that's all you want for your children, is to speak their truth at the end of the day and to say, I feel pressured, I feel it's all getting too much. Parents are very well-meaning. I don't think any parent does it out of malice, like, you've got to study, you've got to be the best. They do it because they want their children to succeed and do well. But there's a tipping point where it becomes too much. And then the young people they just don't know how to cope with it. They just feel overwhelmed, they feel stressed, they resort to not eating properly, they might self-harm, they might adapt to all sorts of other unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Yes.
So it's about saying, okay, what's working, what's not working. You need to tell your parents what's not working. You need to go for a walk, you need to sit down, you need to do whatever it is, but you need to write them a letter, text them a message, send them a Snapchat, do whatever it takes.
Yes.
That message across. And sometimes it is sending them a WhatsApp message or a voice note on WhatsApp, just saying, hey, Mom, I'm upstairs, but but I'm really feeling overwhelmed. I feel like you're not listening to me when I say I've already done 6 hours revision. You're like, you've got to do more. It's about addressing what is the more, what is the drive, and what do you want at the end? Do you want a child who comes out of it happy and healthy and has enjoyed their school years, or a child that comes out and is not so happy and not got so healthy kind of coping mechanisms, really?
Going back to what you said earlier about the importance of communication, we did a podcast with some teenage girls a few years ago, and they talked about their mechanisms of communicating and that they didn't always feel like just coming to you. And so, like what you said, WhatsApp, Snapchat, whatever, but I just need to get the message across to you. And parents sort of communicating with their children the way that the children are comfortable communicating as well.
Because if they're not sleeping and they're worrying about their exam at 1 a.m, they're not always going to go wake you up and say, oh, I can't sleep, I'm really stressed about my exam. But they could send them a WhatsApp, they could send them a message so that they read it in the morning and they know that they've been up the night before. Sometimes what a parent says and what the young person interprets are two separate things. I always kind of go on, you've got to have plan B in life. I've even got a really great sign behind me that's all about plan B. And I love plan B, because if you've got plan B, plan A is not quite so scary if it fails. And when I talk to them, I say things like, so what's the worst that would happen if you failed your GCSEs? And the things they come out with, the things they've manifested in their mind to be true, like, oh, my parents will throw me out. Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right, they throw you out. Then what would happen? Well, then I'd have to go live on the street. Oh, okay, then what would happen? Well, then I wouldn't get a job. Okay, then I wouldn't get married. Okay, then I wouldn't have kids. Okay, then what would happen? Well, then actually someone might take me in. Okay, and then what would happen? Then I might go back to school. Okay, and then what would happen? And then it would turn around. So you kind of, and then you break it down and you go, so really, do you honestly think your parents are going to throw you out? Would they really throw you out?
Yeah.
Maybe not. And like, okay, so actually, even if the worst thing that you can imagine happened, eventually it would come around good, because you'd have plan B. You'd go stay with a grandparent or a mum, a friend's mom or something would take you in. There's always a plan B to something. And if you have that, plan A seems a lot less scary, because it's the fear that grips everybody. And if you kind of demystify the fear and you think, well, it's always fixable.
Yes. And it's very easy to do the extreme thinking. And so I think that's wonderful that you have those questions for them and the plan B, because sometimes when you look at what it is that you're thinking, you do have to come face to face with, okay, maybe that's not so realistic.
The thing is, Sonja, when you kind of break it down, their thoughts are either in the past where they did an exam and it was really bad, so I'm going to do bad in this one, or it's in the future, I'm going to fail that one and then my parents are going to kick me out. So there's another really good exercise that's just really simple that they can do to just ground themselves and focus in the moment, which is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's 5 things you can see. So for me, it would be, I can see you, I can see my phone, I can see my desk, I can see my glass of water, I can see my clock. 4 things I can feel. I can feel my bottom on the seat. I can feel the hair in my eye. I feel a bit croaky in my throat. I feel my watch on my wrist. 3 things I can hear. I can hear the clock. I can hear a bird. And I've got a little diffuser thing. I can hear that. 2 things I can smell. I can smell the diffuser. I can smell my elderflower water. And 1 thing I can taste the elderflower. So do you see how that slows you down and it brings you back into the present moment?
Yes.
90% of anxiety is not in the moment. It's in the future or it's in the past. It's not actually in the moment. And when you bring it back to the moment, okay, I'm here right now. Does that problem that I just had a minute ago, does it actually exist in this moment? No, it doesn't.
That's a wonderful exercise, because it really underscores, as you said, living in the space you're in the moment. And all of this extreme thinking, it does get you so worked up. I'm definitely guilty of it. And that's a wonderful exercise. And I wonder, is that the sort of thing that you would also suggest that people do? Or I guess, first of all, I want to talk about burnout. How do you know when you're just to the point where you're feeling really burnt out? And then what can you do to sort of reclaim your energy?
So I think, again, if I go back to before burnout, I would say start things that are preparation, because preparation is better than cure. So preparation would be finding ways to de-stress, finding ways to relax, finding your resting pulse, doing breathing exercises, maybe finding something on the car. I'm a big fan of the car map. I love the car map. There's so many different things on there that you can do. And if you build these exercises into your routine before exam season, before you're supposed to be studying really, really hard, then you've got that toolkit already. You've got your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I love it.
Other breathing exercises, you're good to go. So when you start to feel like, oh, wow, my heart's really racing, you think, okay, my heart's racing. I need to just stop for a second, go outside, walk around the garden, like Donna said, in the rain, in the mud, and be annoyed, or take a cold shower, or eat something nice, sit down and make a really nice piece of food. All those things will hopefully stop you getting to burnout, because you'll notice the symptoms. You'll notice your heart rate increasing. You'll notice the fact that you're not sleeping, and you'll think, okay, I need to adjust it. Okay,
yes,
that's the prevention. Let's say you've got to burnout. Burnout is where you're withdrawing, you're not seeing your friends, you're not communicating with your family, you're not sleeping, you're studying, you're worrying about it basically 24/7. That's when you need to talk to your parents. You need to talk to your mum and dad if you have them, talk to grandparents, talk to aunts and uncles, talk to mum and dad's friends, talk to the school, talk to people about how you're feeling, because there is so much support out there, but no one's going to help you if they don't know how you're feeling. And it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, because we all go through it. We all have times in our, everybody experiences anxiety, everybody. The thing that comes and goes, ideally, in your life, it's something that you live at a heightened state of anxiety, but we all have stressful times.
yes.
So it's acknowledging that life will throw you a curveball. Life will, there'll suddenly be a topic in the exam that you haven't revised, you missed it. It was the volcanoes. You thought you knew the volcanoes, but you forgot the volcanoes. But that's okay. You know all the rest. So don't let the fact that you don't know the volcanoes ruin everything else. Focus on what you do know, not what you don't know. It's bringing it back again to the present moment and staying on task.
That's great. And I love what you said about the importance of preparation, to try to prevent it. And I love it, having a toolkit. I mean, we all need to have things that we know when we start going there, what we can do. Whether it's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is amazing, whether it's breathing exercise, going outside for a lovely walk, all those things are so important to sort of reconnect. But again, as you said, we do come to a place sometimes where you're going to get a curveball thrown. So I think it's absolutely fantastic to be able to understand that it does happen and to have the coping skills to deal with it.
It also happens to the high achievers. It happens to the people who have it all going on and are all good. I consider myself a kind of reasonable functioning human being, and I'm quite unflappable in, I would say, 90% of situations. But I was the student who walked into her maths exam and passed out because I was hyperventilating so If you said to me, right, you've got to sit a test, you wouldn't recognize me. Something just comes over me that's not pleasant. It's not pretty, Sonja. It's really not pretty. So when I did my counselling training, I thought I need to add on and learn more about stress management and what happens to people and why they get like this. And I think the more kind of together you are as a person, the more shocking it is when you suddenly panic and get really stressed about something, because I shouldn't. Whereas if you're someone who sort of their anxiety goes up and down a bit more, you're more able to cope with it. But for some people, it's like a slap in the face. It's like, I didn't see that coming. I don't know how to cope with that. It's a bit sort of bamboozling. So it's just knowing that it happens to everybody and knowing how to cope with it if you've got the tools to cope with it. And the number one tool is breathing. The number of people that get into such bad breathing habits because we literally suck it up. We suck it up through the day. Like, oh, you've got a test tomorrow. Oh no, I've got a test tomorrow. I've got to go home and revise. You haven't done your homework. Oh, I haven't done my homework. And we hold all this tension inside and we forget to breathe. And that raises our anxiety levels. So it's paying attention to how you are. It's like getting into bed every night and just thinking, how's my body? How's my shoulders? Are my shoulders up here or are they down here? Like, there's a technique that I learned called the 7-11, which is a breathing technique. And I built that into my daily routine and I've done it for 25 years. And I do it in the morning, in the shower, I do it in the car, I do it if I'm making a drink. And it just makes you aware, like you can be driving along. The guy that taught it to me said, build it into stuff you do every day, like making a cup of coffee, having a shower, driving your car. If you see a set of traffic lights, do 3 repetitions. So I could be driving along, between the different clinics that I used to work in, driving along, and you're like driving along, see a traffic light, do the 7-Eleven, go, oh, hello, shoulders. Oh, wow, I've got a much better way of breathing now. I guess I kind of left the last job a little bit stressed about whether I was going to get to the next one in time, and I sucked up the tension. And so it's just becoming aware of how your body is like.
Tell us what the 7-Eleven actually is.
So the 7-Eleven is really, really simple when you can do it.
Uh-huh.
Most people can't do it to start with. You close your mouth, breathe in through your nose for the count of 7, and it's slow. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's that pace. And you want the breath to come from your belly all the way up. Like when you stand on the beach and the sea comes in really slowly and laps at your feet. Think of the breath coming in through your body and just relaxing everything. So you're breathing in for 7. And then when you breathe out like you're blowing through a straw. So you breathe out really slowly, but you're breathing out for the count of 11.
Oh, wow.
So you're forcing more oxygen into your bloodstream. And people say, wow, I feel a bit lightheaded, I feel a bit giddy. And you're like, that's oxygen. That's just oxygen. That means you haven't been getting enough. So it's a really good thing to do when you get into bed, because it just, imagine, so you've been at school all day, you've been studying, you come home, you've got homework, you're trying to throw dinner down your neck, you then go back and do some more homework, and you're like, oh my God, it's like 11:15, I've got to get to bed. You get into bed, I've got to get to sleep, and your brain's like, I'm still in the rainforest.
Yes.
I'm still dealing with volcanoes, and then there's algebra, and then there's chemistry, and oh my God, like that. So your brain's all over the place. And then I can't get to sleep. If you just get into bed and you did like 4 or 5 repetitions of the 7-Eleven, you're going to be present in your body. You're going to relax everything. You're going to set you into a good state. And the more you do it, the quicker you relax every night. So if you do something every single day, you not only do you get better at it, but your brain recognizes it and it goes, oh, she's doing the thing again. I love that thing when she does that thing with the brain. Yes. This makes me feel all lovely. And you're using your left and your right brain. So you can't breathe, count, and panic. You can't breathe, count, and think about other stuff, because you've got the 2 things going on at the same time, because you're breathing and you're counting. So it's a complete reset button.
That's perfect. Yeah, it engages all of the things that it needs to engage, the right nerves, the right systems to get your body to calm down. Well, before we get out of here, I do want to ask you a bit about social media, because they're dealing with social media all the time. And I just want to know how much of an influence does social media tend to play in their revision habits and their studying habits and preparing for the future. And when it does have a little bit too much of a, let's say, a negative influence, what sort of advice do you give to strike that balance?
I think, first of all, I think every parent should have the same kind of apps that their kids have. You should be aware of what they're seeing. You should be aware of what's on TikTok. You should be aware of what's on Instagram, the kind of things they're following. When they're looking at their phone, oh, what are you watching? What are you looking at? And just see what they're seeing, because it is all changing so quickly, from reels to stories to posts to.
Will they be okay with that? Let's take Snapchat, for example, with having a parent, snapping with them, or if they said, no, I really don't want you, that's embarrassing. Would they be okay with you sort of looking at their snaps?
I don't think they're going to let you look at their snaps.
Okay.
No, that's not going to happen. But I think they'd let you look at their TikToks, and I think they might let you look at their Instagrams and just, or go, create a TikTok account yourself, create an Instagram account, and look at what's out there. Like, kind of be a teenage girl for the day and see what's out there. put stuff into the search bar and see what comes up, because it's all changing so quickly. And I think everything in moderation, but you have to realize that in our day, we'd go to school, we'd come home, the phone would be in the hall, it would be cold and a bit drafty, and you'd have to take a phone call in the hallway if you wanted to talk to your friends. Now it's on the bus, it's all constant, there's no let up from it. And I think, I am the parent who would make them put their phones in the kitchen when they had to do work. Both my boys are dyslexic, so homework was an even harder task. But I think equal amounts of work, rest, and play, again, a healthy amount is healthy, an unhealthy amount is unhealthy. And if you're spending more time on that than you are on anything else, and you're being more influenced by that, then that's not a good thing. It's all about living in the real world and making real connections. And I think I sound old when I say that, but I think I think we can't turn back time. We can't stop what's happened with social media. And social media is fantastic for an awful lot of things. Girls can get a lot of support. My friend was telling me the other day that, her friend's daughter was watching stuff about how to insert a tampon correctly. Stuff that she didn't want to ask her mom.
She didn't want to ask her mom and said there are some things that are really good.
Amazing stuff out there that's great. But equally, for every good thing, there's probably a bad thing. So it's making sure that you're going down the right kind of angle and judging the mood of your daughter when she comes off of it and seeing what mood she's in, whether she's happy or stressed or frustrated.
And I just want to say, I don't think you sound old at all when you say, what you say about social media, because we did some research. UIO did some research a couple of years ago, and it was with teenage girls. And the teenage girls said themselves that they felt that they weren't having enough real world experiences. They loved social media, but it was so important to engage with real people, with their aunties, their mothers, their fathers, their cousins, because you can get so involved in just what's not real. So I think that's really key to be able to strike that balance with social media, because also we talked about earlier a little bit of the peer pressure and having the confidence to be you, because some of it comes through social media as well. And even though it's a very wonderful thing that they have, but they are living in front of a camera all the time.
It's changing so quickly. I mean, Be Real came out just not that long ago. My son was showing me how many takes a friend had taken, because Be Real takes a picture of what you're doing at the time, and also so it takes a picture front and back at the same time. And he was saying, my mate retook that however many times it was. And I was like, oh my God, so other people can see how many times you did a retake on it as well. There's such pressure to be camera ready the whole time and to be smiley. Yeah. And, we're not smiley. I think more people should kind of go, well, it's raining again, it's summer, hey ho,
Exactly. I don't always feel like this. I don't always look like this, it's okay. But I want to know if you've got any final tips for our teenage girls and their parents on the importance, of this subject, something that we haven't talked about, or even if it's something we've talked about that you want to reiterate.
I think probably the most important thing is to talk to your kids, and your kids talk, if you're the daughter, talk to your mum, talk to your dad, just talk to them about how you're feeling, because it's very isolating when you're in your bedroom and you're trying to do work, or you're trying to fit in, or you've had a row with your friends. And a lot of the students that I talk to don't want to tell their mum that they had another row with their best friend, because their mum's going to judge. It's that tricky part of being a parent where you don't go, oh my God, they shouldn't have done that, or I'm going to wade in and fix it for you. It's about listening and saying, how was your day? How are you feeling? What do you need? Is there anything you need from me right now? What can I do to make you feel better? Would you like some nice food tonight? When they're doing exams, cook their favorite meals, get nice food in, just plan trips, like let them go out. Absolutely let them go out during study time, like even if it's just once a week or a couple of afternoons a week, to go get an ice cream, or just do something that is age appropriate, that brings them back to being a kid, because forget, they are kids. They are growing up so fast now, and they don't look like kids anymore. They look like young women when they're 15. And I think there's that pressure to kind of act like they're young women. And I think we also treat them possibly like they're a little bit older and they should know better because they look older, but they're not. They're still young people inside, and they're still vulnerable. They're still needing their parents, and they're still needing to be told, you need to be in, and you need to go to bed at 10 o'clock, and you need to have your phone off when you go to bed. Oh my God, phone's out the bedroom, phone's off and not on during the night time. Absolutely, that's another one.
That is really good. Some of us adults need that advice as well.
Yeah, no phones before bedtime, Sonja.
Yes, that is really priceless information. And you've given us a great podcast. And we just thank you so much for joining us today on UIO. And it's just a great podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sonja.
That is a wrap for UIO, Your Education Matters, with lots of lessons learned from Donna Morgan. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. Today, I pray for a happy, healthy school experience for all teenagers, and that though education will be taken seriously, young people will also find the right balance to enjoy their school years. Also, I pray that the importance of education will resonate the world over and that girls everywhere will get the education they so desire and need to enjoy the space they're in and become happy, healthy adults. I ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Tune in next week for episode 3 of the You Matter series for UIO for some straight talk with rapid transformational therapist Kat Williams, who's going to talk to us about well-being. Your well-being matters. Meanwhile, hit me up on Twitter at Sonja Lewis, Instagram at Sonja D. Lewis, Facebook, sonjalewis.com/UIO-podcast. Keep the conversation going and keep sending those questions and comments on any of our episodes. Take care of you inside out, and remember, it is UIO.